I have a confession that I need to tell you.
Are my
Before
books
we
still in
begin.
boxes outside your house? Is that the confession?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Fundamentalists podcast. This is the first episode of 2023, so Happy New Year if it's not too late to say that. I'm joined today by Dr. Peter Rollins, who's currently in Northern Ireland, California. Today, we're going to be discussing the idea of achievement, society, slash hustle, culture, as it might more colloquially be known. Pete, how are you?
I am good, and I was thinking as a graduate of Hustle University, I'm really excited about this episode with you. You can,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been getting into Andrew Tate lately. He has a
yes,
lot of good
yeah,
ideas, and
yes.
he's just like a cool guy. And this I like this subject because you didn't go with the one I suggested, which was tips for alpha males on how to flirt. So maybe next week we'll do that.
Yeah, I did like that suggestion, so I'll let that ruminate for a week with me. Here, any New Year's
Perfect.
resolutions,
Yeah,
by the way? Did you?
yeah. Just not drinking. I'm just taking a break from that and then doing getting healthier, I guess. That's about it. Just living with myself, sitting with myself. How about you? Did you do any New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I want to drink more, exercise less, and spend
Good.
less time in
Good.
self-reflection. So we're kind of like
What
passing
up?
each other like ships in the night, but I've got a feeling mine are going
I
to be
know.
easier than yours.
Yeah, well, you already have such good skills there with not doing things, doing bad
Yes,
things more, so it's gonna be an
yes.
old hat for you.
Years
I
of
do
building
have
up.
years, and speaking of building up, I have a confession that I need to tell you um,
Are my
before
books
we
still in
begin.
boxes outside your house? Is that the confession?
So it's funny you. Um, okay, so it's funny you say that, Pete.
Oh dear God.
So here's for those of you who don't know,
This is terrifying me. Okay, well,
this
should we
is
give a
it's terrifying.
background to
Uh,
this? Should we give background to the
um,
listener?
yeah. So quick background. Pete very generously trusted me to take care of his possession of books, which are multitudinous, and the boxes were left in my driveway. And I, of course, not being an idiot, I did get rid of the bookshelves. So
Yeah.
that's confession number one.
Oh
And I
yes. Yeah.
think I was like, that'll be okay. They went with the junk pickup. But then we organized the garage in such a way that all of your books just got neatly put in one part of the garage, safe away from any elements that could damage these things.
Because oh
And
God.
what I don't know if you've seen, however, that there has been quite a bit of rain here in Los Angeles.
I did hear about this. I heard that there was rain, and I did make a joke to a friend of mine saying about how I could imagine those books were still sitting out in the driveway. But of course, just laughing. So they were brought into a garage, but oh dear
Absolutely.
God.
They were neatly stacked in the one area of the garage that completely flooded, Pete. It completely flooded. It poured in the dead of night. And so there's just a few that got wet.
By a few, how many? I love the
Dude,
fact you're doing this live, so I can't freak out.
uh-huh.
I can't scream and swear at you. I have
It
to
was
be
either
nice
this
to you.
or
This is
text. It
clever.
was either text. I was like, I'll tell him on the podcast. That way, it's a win-win for everybody, and it's entertaining this way. No, not all. Not there's
Not
many
all of
that
them.
are safe.
Not all the books are destroyed.
There's at least a dozen that are fine. I will say, as I was going through, and I was quite upset and quite frustrated, and felt very bad. And it feels really good just to get this off of my chest because I haven't been able to sleep for a week. But the good news is the ones that did get wet all look super boring, so you don't have anything too much to worry about. I was like,
Now,
oh, Lacan,
this
he
is
won't need
this
that.
is to tell the listeners, this is like, was there 30 boxes of books? Would there have been that many?
There were probably 15, 20, I would say,
20,
maybe. I
20.
mean, there's
Oh
a fair
yeah.
amount.
And how
But
many
it's
now?
just the well, if you just do the math, this is like a carnival game. If you guess how many books got wet, you can just imagine the x-axis got wet.
Yeah.
The y-axis of books is doing okay, and the x-axis was smaller than the y-axis because it was tall.
Yes.
I haven't counted them yet, but I did set them out and try to dry them quite a long time, and that went about as well as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I know that. For example, your copy of the Voynich manuscript, the
The Voynich
Voynich.
manuscript.
Yeah, your like 8x9 copy. It was weird. It got rained on, and it ended up growing to this big size. So you
Oh,
can
did you
have
get the
this as a
Voynich
replacement.
manuscript? That's hilarious.
Yeah,
I was going to make a joke.
Yeah,
about
Curtis
that.
got it for me.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
Curtis,
difficult in parts. That's a beautiful copy.
Difficult in parts.
Let me see it.
I know, isn't it cool?
That's really cool.
For our audio listeners, the Voynich
Yes, no, it is
manuscript
difficult in parts, I would say.
Anyway, so this is super safe. This ended up looking great, and but I am very genuinely sorry that some of your books did get damaged, but I tried to save as many as I could, and I will give you an update when I know how many are not worth it. But
Easy come, easy go. Easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
In fact, if you didn't tell me, I probably would never notice.
That's what I figured, and that's what I was banking on. But I thought it would be more entertaining than anything bad. But I'll let you know if there's anything that like has like a lot of your books that you wrote got wet. So it's like
Oh yeah, well, to be honest, that would be totally fine. Here, we should do a whole episode on the Voynich manuscript at some point. That would be quite funny.
Yeah, I'm really confused and fascinated by what it is because I thought it was just I people think it's like a recipe book or something, but like it's like indiscernible and no one knows what it was.
It's a completely indiscernible text. People have tried to crack it. Code breakers have used it. Some people think it's just a fake thing. Some people think it's kind of just like a madness. So it's a very interesting
cool
enigma that every now and again people think they've solved, and then often that gets debunked. I haven't looked at it recently, actually, the last few years, but last I looked into it, there was talk of them having made progress in understanding it. But you probably know more, actually, because you've looked into it recently, obviously, buying that nice copy.
Well, that was a gift from Curtis at my at the wedding. Yeah, he gave it, and I was like, "Whoa, cool!" I had no context for it, so I still haven't. I know, I'm sure less than most people, but I would love to do an episode on it because we go for clicks.
We go for clicks in the Voynich
know.
manuscript. That's gonna bring the masses.
Yep, sex sells, baby. It is a sexy topic. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, apologies. Thank you for understanding.
No problem.
And I blame the rain and also myself. So what do you think about
Achievements
transitioning?
aside.
What do you? Yes. What's your take on it? Because you have a writer you want to bring in to talk about.
I do.
Writers.
So a writer in particular, he's become quite a big thing recently. A lot of people have been talking about him for a couple of years, and so I finally read some of his stuff. Who was that?
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, that's right. Jordan Peterson. A guy called...
incredible intellect.
Yes. Byung-Chul Han, if I'm pronouncing his name right. I think German-born South Korean philosopher. And very interesting guy. Written a number of books. As I say, he's become quite a lot of people are reading him. And
can you spell the name for our listeners who might want to as you move on?
Byung-Chul.
Okay, then never mind.
Yes, B-E.
I wasn't trying to trick you.
Oh, yes, you were trying to trick me. I think I could get through B Young, and that would be about it. Byung-Chul. I can do Han, H-A-N. you know. So, are you doing a little bit of Wikipedia research right now?
Yeah, okay, the first thing I see is Yu Young Chul, who is a South Korean serial killer, sex offender, and self-confessed cannibal. I don't
That's
think
the
that's
one.
who you're talking about. That's the one.
That's
Okay,
the
perfect.
guy. Have you not come across him? B Young Chul Han, the Burnout Society. This is like a Joe
All right,
Rogan
burnt.
episode. You're doing the research as we talk.
Yeah, bring it up, Jim. Oh, I see. B Young Chul. Beeyungchull. The Burnout Society. Oh, Byung. Excuse me. No. B Young
Yep,
Chul
that's
Han.
B Young Chul Han. Yep,
Cool.
that's the guy.
Cool cover to his book, The Burnout Society. Very nice cover. All right. So
Yes.
what's his take?
Okay, so he's very interesting, and I will just take up a little bit of what he talks about. But his whole thing is that, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this is, especially I miss this about LA. Like, if this guy's work references anything, it's what we see in Los Angeles, but also in social media. He talks about what he calls achievement society, or an excess of positivity, where people are self entrepreneurs and they're always being told to self optimize, seize the day. You are be awesome, kind of do what you need to do. Don't sit back and wait for something to happen, but you make life happen yourself. So all of this stuff that we see in social media, but Byung Chul Han says that this is a very modern symptom of kind of modern society, is I say this achievement society. And he differentiates it from what Foucault called disciplinary society. So in the past, you had to do things because your boss told you to. You may hate your job, but you have to do it, right? You do your job, you hate your boss, but disciplinary society. If you don't, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to lose your job. If you don't contribute to society, you might get put in prison. And he says there's a phenomenon today where we are our own oppressors. Where you work for somewhere like Facebook, you don't just have to do it; you have to like it. You have to wear the T-shirt. There's a sense in which it's like there's no place for internal there's no place for negativity, basically. And Byung Chul Han, he makes a very good argument for saying, like, we see something very unique today, some very unique symptoms that you didn't see in previous epochs, and say feudalism, for example. These are the modern symptoms of fatigue, ADHD. Also, I would say he doesn't mention this explicitly, but a lot of spectrum stuff, autism. Not the high level
Mm-hmm.
autism stuff, but low, kind of like low level in the spectrum autism. These are very modern symptoms. And in the Burnout Society, the book you mentioned there, he kind of argues that this kind of be awesome, achieve everything, uh, you know, pure positivity, pure excess, kind of you can achieve, generates profound fatigue, profound burnout in people, and they can't even express why they feel the fatigue. In being self entrepreneurs. So that's kind of in a nutshell one of his
Huh.
ideas. Um,
Do you think this is entrepreneur in any capacity? Like, is this like an entrepreneur who starts a business, a shoe repair business, or is it specifically like the capitalist owner of any business, or is it the I'm branding myself and I am the product
so I think,
kind of
yeah,
person?
I think he's primarily thinking like the tip of the spear is influencers, right? Like I think they're the best example of it. So not so much
Yeah.
in a small village where someone's got their small business and they're doing their shoe business and they go home at night, but more this thing where both in work and in your personal time, it's about life hacking, optimizing your life, about kind of making sure you seize every opportunity, kind of go out there and get. And the influencer is both the one who gives this message and the one who suffers most from this message. They're kind of both the
Nice.
plague and the victim at the same time.
Nice.
Yeah.
One of my readings. I'm doing a class on technology, the psyche,
Mm.
and this is technology is dream and symptom, and we're going through a lot of the similar type things of the constant outward or horizontal reaching for either achievement or things that are information to make you smarter at the expense of like taking time to stop and reflect and like ground yourself in a vertical axis of being rather than just the horizontal axis of being. And it sounds a little similar because it's the effect of effectively you lose yourself by selling it constantly.
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah. Like by that constant um, selling of yourself. There's and the problem is it's funny because I know some people obviously on Instagram who kind of like propagate this message. Um, and they're good people, people I like, whatever. I don't know them that well, but there's something so exhausting about well, both even looking at the content, but if you try to do it, you both one is you kind of feel you're never going to live up to it, but if you did,
Yeah.
you'd actually be exhausted, absolutely exhausted. Whereas in one sense, Han is kind of in advocating what a lot of poets and a lot of people like I'm trying to think. Oh, what's that poet called? Oh, he'll come back to me. But
Rumi.
no, thinking of that guy. Oh, he's very good. Anyway,
Seuss. Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Seuss, that's the one. But who advocate for actually not optimizing your life, of like having of doing nothing, not out of fatigue, because the whole point of that Hans talking about is a kind of doing nothing does come out of this, I fatigue, like sleep problems, ADHD issues, like stress, anxiety issues, depression, melancholy. Um, but rather the kind of like, what about just sitting around having a drink with friends and not trying to do anything, not always feeling that you have to seize a moment, like that's what's beginning to disappear. um, it's actually
Yeah.
nice being back in Belfast, because one of the things in Belfast does not have achievement society as built into its
Yeah.
DNA as obviously LA, but it's more so my next door neighbors are social influencers. They're two young guys in their 20s, and they're selling positivity, pure positivity, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I wonder if this is like a how much it's tied to just straight up age. I see sometimes people who are older than me who are like doing the same thing, just like this constant hustle, and I'm like, how are you not exhausted? Like how are you not, and how do you do that while maintaining any sense of interiority at all? Because you're just and they love it, like they live their lives doing it, and it's in bed you can make content, which is just crazy. You can wake up and immediately start putting whatever's going on the internet. I often wonder why the shift I had, because I used to do it constantly. I would be making content and putting anything out there, and then I go, oh, I'm kind of bummed. Maybe I need to start making more content because it's fun and there's a performative aspect to it and there's an entertainment aspect to it that I really enjoy. But there's this hiccup that happens where I'm like, I don't want it to be like me. Like I don't like it being like, I'll get super into writing something or doing school stuff or reading and trying to like become better or whatever, and then there's just a brick wall between doing that and then being like, I'm gonna put everything out there again. And I don't know how people, I have friends who do it, and God bless them. I don't know what their how much caffeine they have to
yeah.
keep that going.
As potentially that
It's
their
wild.
ADHD kind of things, because these are the various symptoms that you see today that are very popular. ADHD is one of them, but and then fatigue at the other side, but they both seem to be connected to a very modern type of life, or not even like a psyche. They're neurological
Hmm.
phenomenon that so even I mean, if you kind of compare and contrast feudalism with kind of contemporary capitalism, in feudalism you were born, and it's pretty shit really, but you were born and you had a particular job you did, which is what your dad did, and
Yep.
you married pretty much the person who, there wasn't much choice, there wasn't any life choices, you didn't kind of leave and move somewhere else, you didn't have
Yeah.
aspirations to become rich, you were very caught within a type of caste system. So that created lots of interesting physical and psychological, pathological kind of issues. But
Yeah.
but what Han is talking about is in contemporary society, from when we're born, we're kind of told, especially in contemporary first world, you can marry anybody, you can do anything, you can. So and the funny thing is about, when I was in LA, the world where there is no prohibition, where you can have sex with who you want, you can do whatever you want. It's interesting that more and more people are not dating and not going out. And so the symptom is there's people that are kind of like self-imposing all these restrictions, because it creates a phenomenal amount of anxiety, this freedom that kind of says, you can achieve, you can do, it's on you. You can go out with whoever you want, have sex with whoever you want, date whoever you want. You can move to whatever country you want. If you don't like your job, even a few generations ago, people were in the same job for life. But today it's like,
Yeah.
you don't like your job, you can move to another. There's whole websites designed to help you move. And on the surface, it would feel like this would be wonderful freedom. But kind of, you're reminded of Jean-Paul Sartre. He says we're condemned to freedom. That actually this amount of what Han calls pure positivity, pure kind of excess, pure possibility, generates all sorts of psychotic anxieties, neurotic anxieties, all sorts of, as I say, fatigue and burnout, and stomach issues, loads of stomach issues, loads of issues, intestinal issues, and all of these very modern symptoms are potentially tied to this profound sense of possibility.
Yeah, yeah, it's overwhelming to have all of those, and it's I think constantly looking forward and looking up and looking toward the future of being good. Well, and obviously, I'm reading right now an article on futurism or futurology, and like it was written in like the mid '90s by Hillman, and it's all about the I haven't finished it yet, but essentially the one of the lines that I liked that wasn't particularly deep was like, it's not the clicking of the top of the clock, it's the context in which you hear it. And when you hear the ticking of the clock and you're obsessed with the passage of time and how quickly things are moving, and you got to get everything done right now, and life is short, which is just a trope. And it's like, life is, you have to get it, this is, and it's like, you don't, it's like a self-imposed manic look on the world that makes the world then more manic as a result of living that way.
Yes,
Wild.
absolutely. Yeah, and one of the symptoms that now I haven't seen Han talk about this yet explicitly, but one of the symptoms that could come from that exact watching the clock, feeling this intensity, feeling you have to seize the day, is when that anxiety gets too much. One, you either see, as I say, these symptoms, these disorders, or you see self-imposed disorders, people doing, spiritual, what I'd call spiritual eating disorders or whatever, putting their own kind of like their own prohibitions on themselves, or seeking some sort of return to a kind of almost a caste feudalistic society. Did we talk last week? Did I use the example of in LA people who I know who increasingly, because it's difficult to date, want to return to conservative churches like something like Hillsong, because actually it's easier to date whenever you're in a conservative,
Yeah.
frame. I don't know if we talked about that last week, so I don't want to talk about it again if we did.
I will say I like that you're saying both last week and I'm saying next week as though we're on a weekly schedule, and that's fun. I think we
Exactly.
should keep that up. It's a like subtle lie that we're just pepper it in there.
Exactly.
I
Yes. Yeah.
think maybe
Maybe it
we've
was the
talked
week
about
before last. I can't remember. It was one of the last three episodes we did in the last 3 weeks.
yeah in the last 3 weeks. Yeah. The it reminds me though of the well, yeah, young people are also getting more into Roman Catholicism. I mean, you see like
Yep.
what
Yep.
Dasha and all the Red Scare
Yes.
girl, and I haven't heard of young people going back to conservative like fundamentalist churches, but certainly the liturgy and the ritual and like the going through it, and
Yeah.
apparently part of it that I read was they don't even, part of the reason it's Roman Catholic is they like not knowing what the words are. They just want the like to sit in the presence of it and go through the motions that are the same everywhere you go in the world, I guess, at this in that
Yes.
particular, which I know very little about it, but
That. Yeah.
besides
No.
what it's called.
That's very interesting. Yeah. That's the kind of trad move, and you're right. And you bring up something very interesting there, which is within Catholicism, especially if it's Latin Mass, people want to not understand. Because another thing that Han talks about is that, now it's funny reading him, because when I did my PhD in the early 2000s or whatever, deconstruction and post-structuralism was all the rage, and we talked a lot about the philosophical terms sameness and otherness, and Hans using those terms. But it's like Han talks about sameness as in everything that we're consuming, everything kind of has to be something you can own or understand or know. You've got Google now, Google searches that we do, and actually what happens again is one of the things that we miss is otherness. And otherness is kind of precisely the experience of something that we cannot colonize, we cannot purchase, we cannot understand with our minds. So a Latin Mass is interesting because it's kind of an experience of otherness, because you're
Yeah.
hearing something that you literally cannot colonize or conceptualize, or in philosophy render into the same, render into your mind.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. It's I mean, is that just people wanting something exotic to like, because they're so numb that they're like, here's, at least this is different. It's not the same thing. And it almost, I also wonder if there's like a little bit of a rebellious, like, the rebellion now is going to be like a more conservative, which I mean, that's what a lot of the conservative talking heads say. They're like, being Republican is the new punk, being conservative
Yeah.
is the new punk, because in a world that's, their argument, I guess, is in a world that's just free for all and anything goes, the coolest thing you can do is be like
Yeah.
restricted and calm and stoic and
Yes.
all that.
Well, for me,
It's
yeah.
like
I mean,
you're still operating in relation to the outside world. You're still just acting differently in the same context, I guess.
yeah. No, I like, I've said before here on I think on our podcast and to you that, like, I do think that conservatism is a symptomatic response to progressivism. Progressivism always generates the conservative return. Now, I don't think that's the right move. I think it's the kind of the wrong move, but I think it's the predominant move. So and as we're talking about here, it's partly because of the amount of anxiety and stress and
Yeah.
melancholy that progressivism causes, that generates a return. The difference with the trad thing, maybe whenever you mention the exotic, the one difference might be that we are obsessed with the exotic, definitely, but usually as in we want to find something new to understand and use and kind of embrace. And so, and often, like, capitalism works on that, obviously, because you want to sell new products, so kind of opening up new realms of experience or products. The difference with the trad move is it's not like just something exotic that you can colonize at its best. And again, I don't advocate for the trad move, but I like yourself, I know people who have done it. It's it's not to get something that you can colonize and control and understand. It's potentially, people go to an old church and sit in it because they're dying for precisely the opposite. They're dying for a space away from the frenetic pursuit of more and the same. And so, and one of the
Yeah.
few places today is actually old churches. I was talking to someone the other day, talks about, I was Richard Boothby, who was saying that he likes to go into old churches when no one's, preferably when no one's there. And I think that's a common thing, because you go into an old church when no one's there, or when the Latin Mass is being said to 10 people, and you might be able to feel a kind of free escape from achievement society.
Nice. What's Boothby's deal? I know you did a talk with him, and I didn't get a chance to see it. But what was what was
Yeah,
the genesis of that?
yeah. Well, oh, as it connects to this, actually, I can connect it. So, as it connects to this, Boothby is taking the very kind of French psychoanalytic idea that to be human is to orient ourselves to something unknown. It begins with the unknown. What does the mother want? What does the family member want? But it's also, what does the person I love want? What does society want? What do my friends want? When you go to a party, how should I act? Like, there's a part of us that is oriented to and fascinated by the question, what does the other want? Actually, on this as an aside, I watched a thing about the Mona Lisa recently. The algorithm spat out a video about the Mona Lisa, and they're like, why is it so the most photographed painting in the world and the most visited painting in the world? And art critics often say it's because Mona Lisa has a look on her face that is enigmatic, that is very like Leonardo da Vinci is able to capture this thing where there's composure and yet it's just a slight smile and there's an enigmatic what is Mona Lisa thinking? What's going on in her mind? And then, of course, most people, that's not the reason. But for most people, the question is, why do other people find Mona Lisa fascinating?
That's what I thought
So,
you were going to,
yeah. So the question is still, it's the same, but it's not like, what is Mona Lisa thinking? But why the hell does everybody else find it so fascinating? So with Boothby, he's kind of, he obviously very brilliantly looks at how we're oriented to this otherness. He looks at how religion is very connected to that. His most recent book, which is a phenomenal book called Embracing the Void, looks at how religion orients us to the unknown. And connecting that with Han, I don't know how much he talks about religion, if at all, but Han is basically also saying we need to orient ourselves to otherness. So whether psychoanalytically or existentialists are about this, but going like, in a world where you can have, you can know, you can look up anything in a moment. Technically, you can look up, like, we talked about the Joe Rogan thing there, but someone can look up on Google and find information. We fool ourselves into thinking that everything is at our fingertips. And what we lose, is what we lose is otherness, which you can never lose because otherness is inherently part of existence.
Yep. That's very related to a lot of the stuff that I'm looking at right now with the technology stuff and the obsession with gathering more information or having the information constantly available, and also having cell phones in your hands that basically act as like external cyborg chips that we can just like, our phones are part of us, and so we have this like superpower that any like mythical wizard would have been jealous about, and as a result we walk around and we're just like, duh, life sucks.
And
it is
the thing about this is Han talks about the swarm. He has this brilliant term called the swarm, and I'm only kind of starting to get to know it, but he says that a swarm is different from a crowd. A crowd can get together, say at a concert, and all have a unified reason for being there, or a protest. A crowd gathers for a reason. A swarm is this huge amount of things, but with nothing unifying it, no soul, basically. And so he says we live in the age of the swarm. And I was actually testing chat AI recently, because everyone's talking about AI. So, yeah. Oh, and
I was just talking to my brother about this last night.
Oh, yeah.
How'd it go?
It's fascinating stuff. I'll tell you what I did, and then I want to hear what you think about it. Because what I was wanting to test was AI is incredible. We were getting it to do, like, me and my friends have been using it to kind of like make it generate songs and about all these weird things. But when I tested it with philosophy, it was really pretty bad. And I realized why is that what it would do is it would kind of like a swarm. It would go in and it would just look at what the recent, I don't know how many years of articles that have been written about some philosopher like Hegel, and kind of put it into a 2-paragraph thing. And what was missing was interpretation. Soul, exactly. A soul, a kind of like, so it wasn't reading Hegel. And even if it did read Hegel, I wonder what it would say. But it felt like, yes, it didn't have a hermeneutic soul. It just kind of, and so it was very poor. It was just very poor. And that's what Google does, is you can get all this information, but you don't have a philosophical lens through which to interpret and gather that information into something meaningful.
As the comedian Dave Mitchell, I heard say about a week ago, I've printed Google out and I'm making my way through it. It's very funny.
Yes, brilliant.
I've been watching a lot of Would I Lie to You? You know that show, Would I Lie to You?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I love that you've got into the British comedies. They're very, like those comedy game shows, they're very good.
Yeah, we're just binging him, and the Taskmaster is the main one, but then ran out of Taskmasters. And Would I Lie to You and listening to David Mitchell is always fun. I love that man. I love
Oh.
David Mitchell so much.
Listen, most
Everything he says,
philosophical
even if
points
it's
I
not that
have,
funny.
yeah, most philosophical points I have, I can find a Mitchell and Webb sketch to back it up.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. At one point, he was arguing with someone on the show, and Grace turned and she was like, "This is like you and Pete," and I was like, "You're not wrong." I was like, "But I think both of them switch sometimes." Like it was David Mitchell and I want to say it was the other guy on Would I Lie to You, or it was Greg Davies who was on the show for a second, but he was also very funny. Anyway,
Uh,
sorry for the tangent.
oh yeah, what did you think of AI then?
Google.
What's
Oh
your
yes.
experience of it?
So I found it kind of a similar thing. I saw a post about on the Jung subreddit that asked Chat AI or whatever it's called, whatever version it was, about to interpret from a Jungian perspective someone's dream, and it was good. It was like really, I was like, that is a like quote unquote Jungian interpretation of a dream, and it makes sense. And you can kind of they include like a lot of the caveats of the dream interpretation, where you go like, oh, it's really it mostly is about whether or not that is impactful to the listener, which is not entirely agreed upon. But you could kind of see like, okay, this is someone who knows a lot about Jung answering this question about the dream. And then I went to try to sign into it, and it was too busy. It was overloaded, so I haven't gotten a chance to mess with it. But I was talking to my brother about it as well last night, because he was doing the same thing, and he was doing questions for coding, like because he does a bunch of internet stuff, and he was saying that when he was asking questions about how to code things, the AI was just immediately like a problem that would take him hours to solve. It solved it
Like that.
like that, yeah. It makes total sense because it's a code, it's internet, it's in its wheelhouse. Whereas, yeah, you don't have that contradiction or split or whatever of the human brain that's operating in there. So it's very linear. And then
Yeah.
I was relating it to another thing I saw about apes, about how no ape has ever wanted to learn more language. Like they'll learn sign language and they'll communicate the sign language and remember it, but they will never ask another ape or another human for more information. Like there's a lack of curiosity in the ape. And then I was thinking about the ape, relating that to the AI thing, and I was like, it's interesting. It's like we are still stuck in the middle. Like there's AI who like is smarter, and then there's the ape who's like not as smart, and then we're still the only ones who are actually have some curiosity with what the world is and
Yeah.
want to like not just have information and spout it back out.
We're
At
somewhere in
least
the
most of
middle.
the time.
That's funny because that's kind of almost like the Kantian view of subjectivity is that human beings are between the apes and the angels. So
Yeah.
we're kind of both simultaneously, but yeah. So maybe we should say it between the apes and AI, and that's kind of what makes human beings weirdly interesting.
Yeah, well, I think that was a Hillman line. We are like smart apes or something. It was not smart apes, it was something like that. But yeah, the thing that I get that I get super interested in is the what it's going to look like 20 years from now, and what
Yeah.
those same things, because it's happening so fast right now. It seems like it's just exploding. And when we have a thing that can basically eliminate the only thing we do, which is Google things, that's just gonna be wild. Like it's gonna be better than Google, and it's gonna be ubiquitous. And then what's gonna happen? And I don't like playing the apocalypse card, but it gets a little mind bendy.
Yeah. Well, for me, the when AI becomes sentient is the moment when, because people say, oh, like, what does AI want? Like, if we let it go, what would it destroy us? Would it want to live with us?
Yeah,
What would it be? So AI is sentient whenever it doesn't know what it wants. So that's
yeah,
the
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's the trick. Whenever you ask AI, "What do you want?" and it goes, "I actually don't know either." Then we've got somewhere interesting. Until then, at the moment, we're
yeah,
just in fucking algorithms and interesting algorithms. I'll
yeah.
give you that. But I think Byung Chul Han is right that we're in the age of the swarm. And the funny thing, he has a great term for it. He calls it Google something, but basically, the purely farming of information is actually uh, has lots of benefits for, like as you said, your brother when he wants to do
Hmm.
coding or something like that. But whenever you want to get into kind of like proper kind of metaphysics, at the moment, computers are not very good at that. They can't do that.
Yeah, it was. I was reading something about like the metaphor that we use or have been using in the from the 20th century on, maybe earlier, is basically the machine metaphor for the psyche. So we are making computers using to become as smart or smarter than humans or quote unquote sentient, but we're doing it with the assumption that the human is also like a machine.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what was this going to look like if we stop looking, or what would it look like if we were to hypothetically stop viewing the psyche as just a plus b equals c thing and something
Yes.
that's more complex? How would that eventually affect uh, technology?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There was a
It's fun
very.
fun to think about.
Oh, go ahead. Oh,
I understand it's fun to think about.
yeah. No, I was going to mention. I'm just looking him up here. Is there's he died recently. What was his name? He's a Heideggerian philosopher who wrote really well in the 80s and 90s, probably back in the 70s as well, where he was one of the main critics of a lot of the work coming out of MIT on how machines on AI, basically. So he's a big critic on AI. I'm going to, let's see, Being in the World is a
Bring it
documentary.
up. Pull it up, Jamie.
Yeah, Being in the World doc. I can't believe it because it's been 10 years since I've read him, but I did read him a fair amount. Herbert Dreyfus. Herbert Dreyfus, that's right. So
Okay.
Herbert Dreyfus did this very interesting work showing that our traditional way of trying to make computers basically aware by giving them more and more information was always going to be flawed. And he used Heidegger to kind of argue that if computers
Yep.
are ever going to become aware, it has to look a lot more like how a baby becomes aware, and that is not about simply the learning of facts. So he did really interesting work on that, um, which I think has been then taken on board
Yeah.
by a lot of people since. But I think I've quoted before, but I love Gabriel Marcel when he said that, people ask, will computers ever become like us? And he says, well, yes, they probably will, but only because we are becoming more like machines. And exactly your
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and as an existentialist, he was very concerned with how we start to treat ourselves as machines, as productive machines in a system in which we perform a task as a waiter, as an influencer, as a working in a job. Like we start to kind of reduce ourselves to merely productive rules. And the weird thing is, it's not so much that machines will become more like us, but we become more like them. And seeing all of this Google research that we're doing, where we become like a swarm, that's a great example of it. A great example of like the absolute destruction of education, really.
The swarm with Google, like, what do you mean? Like, you mean how we're all Googling everything all the time, but there's no, it's just aimless? Or what? How does that relate to the swarm?
Yeah, so the swarm would be kind of like what AI is currently doing, which the swarm has a lot of information. It has all of this information at its fingertips, but and this is the interesting thing is just being able to get information and make everything into facts is itself a very is itself a metaphysics. That is a way of looking at the
Yeah.
world. And what Han kind of argues is that way of looking at the world is kind of is a way that fragments us in our crowd. We're all together, but I suppose maybe he would say to simplify, like we can all find our own little worlds. We can all use that information in different ways and fragment and fragment. So we're still part of society, but we're a swarm, not a crowd, or not a family. We're just
Yeah.
it's like and yeah. So
Soulless.
but yeah, but soulless, and because yeah, he would use it because soul for him in this context might be the way like a group gathers together around a cause. There becomes a type of unifying dimension that you can't touch or taste or see. Hence, soul. It's kind of like it's not visible, but
Yeah.
it's palpable. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Hillman says soul is that which turns events into experiences.
Oh, that's very good. That's very interesting. Because
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
because
like a
yeah,
perspective, not a substance.
yeah, because like yeah, my like basic definition of soul is yes that it is it is the ability to organize experiences. So I think that fits very neatly. So
Yeah.
like and so all
Yeah.
soul means nothing spiritual or anything. It's just basically an organizing, centering kind of like phenomenon, a gestalt in a way. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's nice.
yeah.
Um, yeah, man, wild stuff. And I do the I was reading about the evolution of technology and the different theories of how technology has evolved and the obsession, which I think relates tangentially to the what you're talking about with this the hustle culture and everything. The whole point of technology, excuse you, has always been to basically take the place of time in the like nature's rhythm. So like from fire to where we are now, the whole thing is speeding up the process and like doing in 10 minutes what it would take nature hundreds or thousands of years to do. And then it's like we're so obsessed with just doing things so quickly that I can't imagine everyone wouldn't be a little exhausted all the time.
That's brilliant. No, that's very good. That's very good. And that's similar. And one of the prefaces of one of Kierkegaard's books, he says about how he says we live in a world where everything is being made easier. Technology is designed to kind of make things faster and easier. And he
Yeah.
talks about the railroad and all of that. And he said, and for a while I didn't know what I could contribute to the world. And then he said, I realized what it is. He says, in a world where everything is becoming easier, I realized that I was there to make it more difficult. And I thought it was great. I was like, beautiful, you know? And this is also why people like Lacan are so purposefully difficult to read. Like there's a number of reasons why they have people like the continental philosophers are difficult for a variety of reasons. But one of the reasons is they say that you almost have to work so hard that to get the insight that that cannot be given to you quickly. Like you cannot just in 3 points, all beginning with P, describe what the subject is. That in a way you have to actually go into the labyrinth of language, the labyrinth of impossibilities, and through this, and I find this for myself, but through this intense work, you get incredible insight that genuinely cannot be boiled down to a Google search.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's sometimes I'll be all on one in my studies or whatever, and I'll try for fun to like explain it in my head and like or
Yep.
speak it quietly, and I can't do it because it is and it sounds elitist, which is like a isn't the intention, but it is like a quality more than something that can be completely linearly expressed, I guess. And
Yeah.
the word that comes to mind is the $5 word is apophatic, which is just fun to say,
Oh, yes, the
ironically.
apophatic, absolutely. Yes, one of the richest traditions of theology. Yeah, yeah. 100%. Um,
Apophatic, it's just a fun idea to apophatic, just be like, I just can't tell you.
yes,
It's very coy. It's a cute way to be.
yes.
Oh, it's apophatic. It's beyond language. No wonder people who do things like continental philosophy or academics are so insufferable because they spend
Yes.
all this time diving into stuff and they become experts on it, and because they can't explain it, it makes the other person feel like they're jerks, and so then those people feel inferior. That turns them off. They get on their phone, and it's a vicious cycle. So what good is any of this, Pete? What are we doing?
No, yeah, I 100% no. I mean, the beautiful thing about continental philosophy and the apophatic tradition is they they're obsessed with otherness, with what cannot be with what cannot be touched, cannot be explained, cannot be said, and yet it has an incredibly sophisticated way of
Yeah.
entering into that. And it's not just philosophy, it's all disciplines, but the unconscious, of course, in psychoanalysis is the name for a dimension of ourselves that's within us that we that we cannot access, that we can only indirectly, only like the way
Mm-hmm.
or the light bends around it. And this is the opposite of achievement society. I was actually had a meeting with a friend yesterday. He's helping me look at how I could maybe get my work out there to more people or whatever. He's very good at knowing,
Nice.
how that works. But the trouble that we have is that everything in terms of people who are popular, it's all about how to be more efficient, how to 10x your life, how to life hack it, how to like. It's all about in 10 minutes. I'm going to give you some. They make a stupid promise about how they can either get you more income or get you more,
Yeah.
you date better or whatever it is, right? But whenever your kind of inverted commas product is to frustrate the simplicity, to make things more difficult, to kind of enter into a very long, profound, and difficult journey. How do you make that sexy? It's much more. It's difficult, and I've been asked
Yeah.
to make introductions to my work, and I've tried, but I keep stopping because I go like it's by definition feels wrong. Like it wouldn't work because by definition it's kind of like something you have to enter into and wrestle with.
You're immediately doing it a disservice by, and you immediately will be wrong, and you will know you will be wrong in whatever you say. So it's an
Yes,
endless.
yes,
It's
yeah, because
basically
you've made
self
it.
torture.
Yeah, it's like 3 points. Like as if the world was simply all we need is good advice. Freud once said, I forget what the essay was, very good essay. But he once said that, like, the reason why, unlike counseling, psychoanalysis doesn't give advice or whatever is because, well, partly people know what they should do. Like mostly, like I play poker, and when I have a hand, I broadly speaking know what I should do. Do I do it? Hell no,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
do.
Of
The,
course
the
not.
point the point is something deeper. There's death drive and all of that. But so the point is like when someone's healthy, they may be able to take advice. But it's like the point is just getting things sorted in your head, going, oh, I should do A, B, and
Yeah.
C, has virtually no impact, has virtually no effect. You have to come to self understanding. You have to come to tarry with a dimension of yourself that is difficult. And only through that tarrying can you potentially become healthier. And that takes time. No 5-minute video is going to do that for you.
Yeah. To save your soul, you have to read a lot.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes. And I'm going to be reading a lot less
Uh,
because half my books now are gone.
no, not half. Maybe I don't know. Uh, uh, also, I was gonna say you've used the term life hack a couple times, which is just another fun example of the prevalence of the machine metaphor that we
Oh,
have.
yeah.
Life hack. You're gonna
Yeah.
hack your life.
Yeah.
You're gonna make it more convenient, quicker, more efficient, and that's gonna make you by this one always simple trick. I think you posted something like in 3 very difficult tricks I can help your life or something like that. I
What
think
was it?
maybe it was years ago. You made some joke about all the in this one easy trick. No, wait, what am I thinking? I'm thinking of Mitch Hedberg. Oh man, I'm so
Oh,
sorry,
yeah. Well,
Mitch Hedberg,
that's
for
easy to get us
confusing him with you.
confused. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, that's speaking of an offensive thing. But yeah, it's I want just once I want 3 easy payments and 1 hard as shit payment or something like that. It's very funny.
Very good. Well, that's it. That's
So 4
exactly
easy
it.
payments.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my favorite
Well,
joke ever is his. I just have to say, people have maybe heard me say it before, but he just, in his stoned out way, was talking about Bigfoot and like why all the pictures
oh,
are fuzzy. And then he goes, and then I just thought, maybe Bigfoot's fuzzy. And I thought, that is
yeah,
brilliant. And of course, I think that's
the
the
big fish is fuzzy.
so good. And it's like that's the kind of like brilliant definition of modern physics is the universe seems fuzzy at a quantum level, and we always think it's the instrument. But maybe reality's just fuzzy, and so
Yeah, no, it
I think
is.
Hedgeberg
Yeah.
just gets that right.
Uh, one of my favorites of his, since we're going, I'll match it. It's not as funny, but I just think about it all the time. And he talks about being in a hotel room, and he's like, sometimes if I'm in a hotel and I'm in bed and I think of a joke, I gotta find a pen and write it down. But if the pen's too far away, I have to convince myself that what I thought of ain't funny.
That's very good.
So I think that's about all. Or I'm like, that's funny, and then I'm like, I should write that down. I'll remember. No, I won't. I'll just convince. I probably wasn't funny anyway. Okay, great.
Oh, that's
Very fun.
brilliant. You should make a video. That would be very funny. The video of like, helping people that, listen, if you can't achieve something, well, then just spend 10 minutes convincing yourself that it wasn't worth it in the first place. There you go.
Yeah.
You're sorted.
Beautiful. All right. Well, any plugs you want to do before we wrap this up, or any other points, any other takeaways, any other
Well,
whatever? I like the mix of AI talk and
yeah, I mean, we could do our
this is the
usual
part where we
takeaways, but before takeaway, do you have any plugs? Because you mentioned plugs, so I don't know. Have you got something coming up that you're doing? No?
No, I will say I'm working on creating a Twitch platform, and so this is a newish computer, and I'm trying to figure out how to stream and do that.
Are you trying to make
sometime
money
soon,
from
so.
playing Zelda? Are you trying to like
That's exactly what
combine
I'm doing.
your,
No,
you know,
I'm literally gonna play Zelda, and I'm gonna talk about the unconscious the entire time.
you know what? I actually think if that was the idea, that would work really well.
That's I am not lying at all. There's no
That's
sarcasm there, because Zelda
brilliant.
has all this mythical stuff, and I'm like, this will be very fun.
That's
But I
hilarious.
have to figure out
Playing
how to actually
Zelda and talking about the unconscious and dreams and
just the most
apocalypse.
yeah. How technology is going to destroy us, and we're always just seeking distractions, and then I'll just like kill something. And yeah, it'll be the joke is baked into the idea.
Very
So
good.
don't
very
expect
good.
anything funny during the stream.
Yes.
But yeah, that'll be something I'm working on. But yeah, but takeaway, I would just say.
Oh yeah, takeaway. Yeah. So in a
Um,
nutshell, my takeaway is that, and the interesting thing about this for me is I've been wondering for a while, why are we seeing these modern symptoms, fatigue, burnout, ADHD, autistic symptoms,
dissociation.
this, oh yeah, that could actually be thrown in there as well, melancholy, like things that are like particularly seem to be connected to kind of the modern world, the last, however many years, a few decades. And there's a potential, and even intestinal thing, that's a biggie. This notion that living in a place of pure positivity, pure possibility, kind of, even if it's only a fantasy, but it's a fantasy that is lodged within our heads, that we kind of are caught up in. Is this creating its own type of destructive phenomenon? And then, of course, the question is, and how can we potentially not life hack, not self-optimize, not want to be entrepreneurs of the self? How can we create those spaces, like going into that old church when no one's there, right? That space where we can experience some sort of radical otherness. So my takeaway is, like, it's not really a takeaway so much as maybe a question for a future fundamentalist, but is, how do we make space for otherness and unknown and mystery in the overwhelmingly suffocating ocean of achievement society?
Very nice. I like that a lot. The only thing I would add is I like the metaphor of the vertical axis and the horizontal axis, and making sure that the vertical axis is not sacrificed at the expense of the horizontal axis of constantly wanting to go forward or gather more information or speed up time constantly. And I think that involves, like we were talking about, deep reflection and taking time to think about the otherness and the mysteries that pervade all of life, including our own psyches, not just in the outer world, but that which is going on within us, which is a constant source of renewable wonder in an already, unfortunately, disenchanted world. Thank you, everyone. For
that's great. Can I ask you what, or make sure, because I think that's a beautiful metaphor. So the horizontal is kind of like this moving forward, achieve. The vertical that's the transcendental in a way, as you're saying, like, in the midst of all of this thing, there's some sort of kind of connection with the unknown that we need. That's nice.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this. And we will see you next time.